What's up, everybody? Pete Pardo here from Comic Book Geezers. Welcome to another episode of the show. I know it's been a while, as many of you who might be followers of my Sea of Tranquility channel know. A lot going on with me, with family issues and stuff over the last month and a half or so. So unfortunately, I've had to kind of put Comic Book Geezers on the back burner for a bit till things calm down a bit. So hopefully going forward, you'll start to see more stuff here on the channel. Bill and I are hoping to get together sometime over the next couple weeks. So we'll kind of see how that all goes. Anyway, here I am. You're going to see some solo episodes for a bit. Today, I want to kind of continue on this theme that we kind of left off with a month and a half or so ago about these pretty cool Marvel series that were really short-lived, and kind of talk about like what happened, why did these not take off, and what some of the reasons might be, and just kind of look at the series in general. So, as many of you know, if you've been following the channel, a number of years ago, I went and completed my run of the original Silver Surfer series, all 18 issues of them. Very proud of this series. Very proud of my issues in my collection because, again, these are highly collectible. Some of them are a little pricey. Some of them are hard to find. And, you know, the Silver Surfer is like one of those characters that has endured over the decades. Maybe never became a upper echelon character, but everybody thinks so highly of the Silver Surfer. Maybe one of the greatest like guest stars, greatest sidemen in all of Marvel Comics history. History shows that on his own, in his own book, didn't really catch on. I don't think that is the fault of the character, but a notable character nonetheless, of course, debuted in that 3-issue run, the introduction of Galactus and his herald, the Silver Surfer, in the Fantastic Four. Back in the mid-'60s, of course, written by Stan Lee and drawn by Jack Kirby, would make additional appearances in the Fantastic Four, would show up fighting the Hulk in Tales to Astonish, right? Just would start popping up all over the place. But it was in August of 1968 where Mighty Marvel finally decided to give Silver Surfer his own comic. Norrin Radd, of course, is the name. Comes from another world. Shalabal was the great love of his life. Of course, if you know the history, they go over it a little bit here in issue number 1, The Origin of the Silver Surfer. Of course, drawn by John Buscema, who does the artwork on the cover, most of these covers, and the interiors. Basically, Galactus, the Devourer of Worlds, goes to his planet, Norrin Radd's planet, and is like, you know, I'm going to eat this planet and everything in it. Here's the deal. It's what's going to happen. Norrin Radd makes a bargain with Galactus that it's like, if you spare my planet, I will become your herald, basically would take, because he's basically a human. Galactus would then change Norrin Radd into this being with the power cosmic that would help him scour the universe looking for planets to devour to keep himself alive, right? So he gets this high-powered skateboard, or surfboard. Surfboards were very popular at the time in the mid-'60s, right, with teenagers. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were like, all right, you know, why don't we come up with a character and would somehow utilize this craze of surfboards? And they come up with the Silver Surfer. So in agreement with Galactus to spare his home planet, he becomes Silver Surfer, can no longer go back and live with his love Shalabal and his fellow beings on that particular planet. The lonely existence of surfing across the universe to find dead planets or planets that have some energy for Galactus, right? So, of course, when they come across Earth, that's how it all starts with the Fantastic Four. So he eventually decides to go up against Galactus, say, I'm not going to do this for you anymore. I want to be able to go back to my whole planet. I don't want to do this for you anymore. I don't agree with what's going on here. And Galactus allows him to be free of his services, but one condition. He's no longer the Herald of Galactus, but he has now been banished to Earth and he can't go anywhere else. There's like this invisible like force field around the Earth, only to be... It can only stop him from leaving. Can't stop anybody else from coming and going. So it really only works on the Surfer. So that's kind of where the series starts, with him being banished to Earth. Now all of a sudden he has to get himself into all of the ways of the people of Earth and all the things that are going on here, and should he be a hero of the human race and whatnot. So here you get this kind of picks up where all this leaves off in, obviously, the Fantastic Four. So again, goes through his origin and sets the stage for the rest of the series. Highly collectible debut issue right here. Great, iconic cover. As much as Jack Kirby was the guy who, originated the Silver Surfer, I would argue that John Buscema did a great job on this series in his depiction of the Silver Surfer. So in issue number 2, again, here's where he finds out that, I can't leave the Earth's atmosphere, but others can come in. So, of course, this race of aliens come in, and he does battle with them to save the Earthlings, right? These early issues in this series are really, really well done. And as you notice, they're all fairly thick. You see the spines on them, right? These were all double issues, so they were going for 25 cents at the time. This is back when regular comics were 15 cents. So not only did you have a full Silver Surfer story, but you also had Tales of the Watcher. So they would do, of course, the Watcher, another character fresh from appearing in Fantastic Four, little solo stories with the Watcher, or the Watchers, I should say. So now we get into some of the holy grails of this series, right? So, well, the first two are as well, especially number 1. Here we have the debut of Mephisto. Now, Mephisto, who, of course, made his presence known in many other Marvel comics throughout the years, a foe to many heroes, he becomes the de facto main villain, the main adversary of the Silver Surfer throughout this series. He pops up numerous times. For my money, I love Mephisto, but I think one of the reasons, and you all know if you follow a lot of these short-lived series, I think in order to have a great, successful superhero book, you have to have great supervillains. And while I think Mephisto is great, they did a piss-poor job with creating other supervillains in this series. That's one of the reasons why I think this particular series did not last longer than it did. But this is a classic. This is, again, another highly collectible issue. Number 3, great cover art. Mephisto becomes a supervillain right from the get-go. They use them a lot in this series. He would pop up from time to time in against other heroes as well. But really, other than Mephisto, there's really no other major villain here that kind of made its debut in the Silver Surfer and went on to do even better things, or made a name for his or herself in this particular series. Another highly collectible, sought after, could be my favorite issue in the entire series, is issue number 4. Of course, the Surfer makes his way to Asgard and does battle with Thor. Classic cover, one of the greatest covers of all time. 2 behemoths going up against each other. They often talk about the strongest heroes in the Marvel Universe, from sheer power to all the other powers that they have. And while, you may think of the Hulk and the Thing and Namor the Submariner and Thor and Hercules, and, there's arguably others, right, as the strongest pure strength heroes in Marvel Comics, you have to include the Silver Surfer in there because of the power cosmic. All of those capabilities that he has utilizing the power cosmic puts him up in the upper echelon with all these other guys that I mentioned. Absolutely does. Great issue right here. Best cover in the entire series. Here's another really good one. Going up against The Stranger, issue number 5. Another really good one. One of the things that you notice as you read through these, and I think one of the main things, other than the whole lack of a consistent villain presence other than Mephisto, I found that the way Stan writes the character of the Silver Surfer / Norrin Rad, there's a consistent woe is me kind of theme going through all these storylines, through all the dialogue. The Surfer is constantly like lamenting his predicament in life and how much he misses his homeland, how much he misses Shalabal, who he does get to see from time to time throughout here. He does get to venture out, and those things do happen. And how he just doesn't understand the human race and how they judge him and how they treat him, and just this whole the tortured artist effect. It gets annoying after a while, and it gets really old. To me, I think that's number one. The villain thing is definitely number two, but the number one reason why this series did not last longer, and maybe looking back, if you look at all 18 issues, that maybe it doesn't sit up there with a lot of people as one of the great series of the 60s from Marvel, is because of that. I wasn't buying all these when they were, I was too young. Obviously, I started getting these way later. But as you get through, and these are all thick issues and whatnot, the stories are long. As you get through, by the time you're like halfway through the series, you're just like, Jesus, dude, shut up already. Right? It's just like, we love you as a character. We love your powers. He's got a great look and everything like that. But just stop talking. Stop whining and crying about your lot in life. It just, and Stan played it to death. And it just got to be like to the point of enough already. We just want to see you go out there and battle whoever you're going to battle. Stop talking about how horrible, your existence is. It just got to be ridiculous after a while. Here's issue number 6. It's kind of like there's some one-off stories here, which are kind of fun. But again, if you look back on, nobody ever talks about these particular issues here. This, I believe, is the first ever appearance of the Frankenstein monster in a Marvel comic. Okay, so here all of a sudden Surfer winds up getting involved here. Right? Kind of interesting. So here we have a 2-issue run where he goes up against a guy named the Ghost, who's actually almost like a minion of Mephisto. So Mephisto is kind of involved here. I'm not sure I'm nuts about the cover here or here. Here's a part 2 of that particular story. Then here he decides he wants to go. He's got to find out more about what makes the human race tick, and he doesn't want them to see him as him. So he goes and he puts on like human clothes, and he gets all sorts of involved with what's going on with humans. That's issue number 10. That's not too bad. Here, he finds a way to go reunite with Shalabal, his love of his life, if only briefly. Here's an interesting one where he winds up going into combat against the Abomination. So, of course, the Abomination at this point, fresh off of battles with the Hulk. And I'll open this one up here. And again, this is, John Buscema art, pretty cool. And, here's a perfect example of what I was talking about before. There he is, the pain look on his face. Woe is me, it's like only on the planet Zenla, that's where he's from, by the way, I forgot to mention that. Zenla could her deadly wound be healed, talking about Shalabal. And so I had to send her from me back to the world that had spawned us both, the world which has forever denied me. But I must return, I must learn of her mate, I must find a way to rejoin her once more. I'll do this, I'll do that, blah, 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 blah. Of course, he hits the barrier and ba-boom, no can do, dude. And it's just like every issue is filled with this. And it's just, after a while, it's just like, God, enough already. So I want to get you to comes upon this like coven of witches in here. And then, of course, we see that the witches have somehow stumbled upon the Abomination after one of his battles with the Hulk. And they basically try to figure out a way to control him. And then they come into contact with the Silver Surfer. And, of course, the Abomination is doing their bidding here, so the two of them wind up going at it. So here's, where you see, obviously we know how closely matched the Abomination and the Hulk are. So here you see the Silver Surfer getting involved. And, of course, he's got different fighting skills than the Hulk. He's got the board. It just shows you just how strong he is. I mean, if this doesn't tell you right here, he basically just lays out the Abomination. Just like that. So right there. And by this time, we're only doing the Silver Surfer stories. We're back down to 15 cents. So right, they stopped a couple issues ago. They stopped with the Watcher stories and just went to regular length books, or issues, I should say, back to 15 cents. Because, you know, they did the first bunch were like 25 cents, right? Yeah, I mean, up to issue number 7. All those are 25 cent or double issues. Again, you know, 25 cents may not mean much today, but back then in the late 60s to a young kid, right? 15 cents is better, right? So here we've got, he goes up against the Doomsday Man for issue number 13. You know, by this point in time, the series is kind of stumbling a little bit. Sales are not great. So what do you do when that happens? You bring in other, more popular characters. So here, how about a little confrontation with Spider-Man? Of course, Spider-Man's the #1 most popular comic and hero. See if that helps. Let's continue that trend, right? Let's bring the Human Torch here. Of course, he already knows the Human Torch pretty well. They're going to go do a little battling here. Let's bring back the villain that everybody loved, the only real good villain that really developed from this series. How about Mephisto once again? All right. Battling it out in New York. The Surfer always seems to be in New York. Let's bring in Nick Fury and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There's a Barry Windsor-Smith cover, by the way, for issue number 17. All of a sudden now, the Silver Surfer decides, I've had enough with this human race. All they do is mock me, and they're afraid of me, and they just won't accept me. I'm trying to help them. So you know what? Screw you, human race. While I'm here now, I'm going to make your lives miserable. So he kind of goes off the deep end, battling S.H.I.E.L.D. there. And then eventually he winds up doing battle with the Inhumans. There's Black Bolt, Gorgon, Medusa, and company. Triton, everybody there. This is a Jack Kirby cover, and Jack Kirby returns to draw the Silver Surfer once again. This is the final issue, issue number 18, so he does the cover and the insides. However, they leave the story on a cliffhanger. No issue to follow. They do not pick up that story anywhere else until like 30 years later with a short series, I believe it was 1999, called Web Spinners, Tales of Spider-Man or something like that. In there, they actually pick up right where this left off, and Spider-Man gets involved again because he was involved just shortly before on this particular one. So weirdly enough, in 1999, they go back to the story from whatever it is, early 1969 or something like that. And they go and finally finish up the whole story. And I think it's a 2 or 3 part storyline in Web Spinners Tales of Spider-Man in 1999. Does that make any sense? No. You would have thought that would be ripe for them, even though maybe you're going to cancel the Silver Surfer series, but finish this story off in Fantastic Four, right? Because both Surfer and Humans made regular appearances in Fantastic Four. That they didn't do that. So then, a few years later, Surfer starts appearing in other places, whatever, and everything that went on in there just so. Yeah. So a couple of things. So kind of to summarize everything. First of all, you're in 1968, you're asking, again, may not seem like a lot of money now, but you're asking young folks, kids, whatever, to fork over 25 cents for a double issue every single month, right? While this series is coming out. It's 10 cents more than other stuff. You got lots of titles on the newsstands, right? So it's a big commitment, right? So there's that. 2, other than Mephisto, you really didn't develop any new villains in this book at all that are worth anything going forward for the most part. You brought in lots of guest stars. You got Spider-Man, the Inhumans, you got Thor, you got all these other Human Torch, S.H.I.E.L.D., right? Abomination, all these other characters that made names for themselves somewhere else. But you really only built up Mephisto as anything out of this particular series. And then 3, too much whining from the lead character. Constant whining throughout. I get it. His lot in life kind of sucks, right? He's got no control of what he wants to do, but Stan really overdid it. Really, really overdid it. I like so much more the way the Surfer was depicted years later, like during the Infinity Saga, right? Where he's all of a sudden, all that stuff is just by the wayside. He's very sure of himself, and he winds up working so well with like Adam Warlock and Captain Marvel and everybody else against the Thanos character, right? It's just such an important part of that whole storyline, which of course they totally skipped over in the films. Surfer is an integral part of the whole Infinity Saga in the comic. Whatever, as is Adam Warlock as well. So both of them really had nothing to do with the films, sadly enough. But yeah, but otherwise, I really like the series a lot. I think, like I said, there's the first half, there's some great issues here. Yeah, does it work overall? No. I think a lot of us who maybe went out and bought the entire series, it's like there's just something about the character we love, and there's just such a collectability of these that I think kind of surpasses whatever shortcomings the series did have. So, yeah, I love them. I'm always going to keep these. They're prized. It's a prized series in my collection. I'm so happy to have all of them. But I know there's a lot of faults here. But the artwork is great throughout. Covers are great. The character itself is great. Would I have done things a little bit differently if I was in Stan's position? Yeah, I think so. I think so. But I was just 2 years old at the time. I wasn't making any decisions like that. So anyway, let us know what you think of the Silver Surfer series, the first series, 1968, 1969. Down in the comments below, if you have any great memories of this, what are your opinions overall about why this didn't succeed, right? And how would you have done it a little bit differently? Yeah, for me, it's like create some new villains, or, even if you're going to bring in other villains from other that, have already been established, do more of it, because there's some one-offs here that just don't really go anywhere with. And I think, you've already made Mephisto kind of the big baddie of the series, but, you couldn't have him. I mean, he battles him in Fantastic Four, but you got like Doctor Doom. Later on, you got like a Nihilist. There's lots of other, bad guys, villains who you could have brought in here to help this along. But again, it's all about, we're still early on in this kind of silver age of comics, right? So, look at all the great villains in the Fantastic Four. Look at all the great villains brought in Thor and Spider-Man and the Avengers and whatnot. Bring Kang in here, right? Get Kang involved. Why not? It's just kind of sad out of 18 issues, really. Mephisto is the only really great villain we got out of this. And everything else is just like, so I think that had a lot to do with it. I think this could have been a long-standing series, and if they would have just done things a little bit differently. So, but let us know what you think down in the comments below. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. I am Pete Barrow. Thanks for watching us here at Comic Book Geezers. See you real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.